Ladies and gentlemen, the time is finally here because Iron Lung is in theaters. It probably won't be in theaters for super long, which was understood from the beginning, but this has been getting talked about since like 2023. It feels like it's been absolutely forever, especially listening to Distractable, where Mark is talking to Bob and Wade about the production of Iron Lung. You hear all these stories, but it always just feels like that it's coming, and it was always the joke of like, it's coming, guys, don't worry, it's coming. But now it's actually here, and I saw it, and I've got some thoughts, so I want to talk about them. I did actually write a review for it on the website The Phrase Maker that I actually currently freelance for. So if you want to read the full review, you can go to that website. I will link it down below, probably. But I'm just going to be kind of reading off of a little bit of that. I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word, because otherwise you could just go read that. But I want to cover certain points that I don't know if I addressed well enough in that review. And at the same time, I want to expand a little bit. I want to just get into what it means for a lot of reasons. For me personally, I have to say it was so strange to me to be sitting in the theater after it was done and to have actually seen it. And I remarked about that to my friend who I saw it with, and I straight up said, I actually can't believe I just watched that. Not because of the quality of the movie or anything, but just because it's been so long that I've wanted to. So it was just, I was like a surreal experience for me to be able to see it. And again, to see Mark's name in the credits, to see the pictures of Mark, Amy, Henry, and Chica at the end, and see Ethan and Jack. Well, Sean, not Jack. Jack's up to guy. Sean. And Alana, like, just to see these names was so cool on a feature film screen, you know what I mean? Like, this was in my hometown theater, and I finally got to see a movie, written, directed, produced, starring, and editing by Markiplier. I mean, that's insane. With Amy being the creative producer, and just, there are so many things about it that I could talk about for a long time, but I also am going to see it again next weekend, I think. Because I really, yeah, it was such a strange experience in a lot of different ways, because I really didn't know what to expect going in. And I had a couple of hangups. And one of the main hangups that I had going into it, and I even addressed this with my friend before watching it, was I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to separate Mark Fishbach as an actor starring in Iron Lung from Markiplier, the goofy dude who threw his chair because he was crashing out at getting over it. Like, it's so interesting to me as a position for him to be in, and I didn't know how well he was going to pull it off. Because again, I've seen his acting to some degree, but there's always like a certain goof about it. In Space with Markiplier, Heist with Markiplier, like, these things had like a goofiness to them that was indicative of something that was made for YouTube, you know what I mean? But it's like, if you're putting a movie on the big screen like that, there's something different that you have to bring on an acting level. And I would say he nailed it. I really would say that Mark did a phenomenal job in this movie. I would say, and I think other people have kind of touched on this, it took him some time to settle into it. At the beginning, there's still a certain aspect of Markiplier-iness, and I don't know if that's just like my brain registering it as being a little more Markiplier-y from his YouTube channel, but just his performance and the delivery felt, I don't want to say stunted, because that's not the right word at all, but it felt a little toned down, right? It didn't feel like I was watching Simon. It looked like I was watching somebody play Simon. So it's interesting to kind of watch that develop as the movie goes on. And I mean, I don't know if it was filmed sequentially, if he filmed the first scene first. Usually they don't, but it kind of felt like that, in the sense of, by the end of this, like, he was Simon and Simon was Mark, and the two were completely the same. But at the beginning, there was just that little bit of a dichotomy there. So that was certainly something that I noticed. When it comes to that set, man, he's talked about that set, and I knew it was going to be exciting, but to see that thing in action, not just like the regular shaking, although that's something that you can't get with a camera shake, and there was some shaky cam towards the end. I'm not going to get into spoiler territory, but there were periods where, the camera would start shaking and it would go crazy. But that's not really what it was about, like, it was the rig moving Mark while the camera was in the rig, and I think it did such a phenomenal job of selling the fact that you as a viewer are watching this through the camera and it feels like you're there. And it gives you that claustrophobic experience that you would expect coming into a movie like this. And I just think there's something really, really impressive about being able to nail that on the scale that they did. I mean, again, you have to understand, when you look at movies like Oppenheimer, that movie had $100 million estimated budget. This one, I've seen estimates between like $3 and $5 million, which for a movie is insanely on the indie end of things. So to have a rig that they had, and to have what I was reading was about 80,000 gallons of fake blood, 30,000 more than the previous leader in having fake blood in a movie, which was Evil Dead. Like, that's insane to me. So, and that's the thing, and it shows the passion behind the project. And I think that is the big thing to note here, is that there is so much passion that he put into this. And he streamed actually yesterday because there was a very tight race to win the entire weekend for the #1 movie in America between that and Send Help. And unfortunately, I believe Send Help did end up eking it out towards the end. But he was talking about how he just wants to... what was the way he said it? He was saying just how a movie with a little bit of passion can make it to the #1 movie in America. And it was for the first 2 days of the weekend. It took the entire weekend for Disney to catch just little old Markiplier and his self-funded, self-produced, I mean, there were other producers, but you know what I mean. Like, he made this film from the ground up, and it is his film from the ground up. And obviously, I mean, that's doing a disservice to all of the other cast and crew who were in this film, and they did a phenomenal job. But from the perspective of indie filmmaking, it is such a brilliant thing to be able to say that a movie like that rode the top of the boards all weekend until the very end. That's unlike anything. So, I mean, such a big kudos to Mark. And he said, as he was tearing up in that stream, he talked about how anytime he's made content, he wanted to kind of serve as a sort of inspiration to other people who wanted to make content. And Mark, if you are watching this, you did it. All right. I don't do this for money. You can look at my subscriber count. I don't do it for the views. I do it because I genuinely just love making content, and because I've had inspirations like Mark and, like Jeff from Achievement Hunter and Bernie from Rooster Teeth, like all of these people who have been so influential to me to the point where I just wanted to start making shit. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't do numbers. I'm not in it for the numbers. I'm in it because I want the experience of making content and the idea that maybe someone's out there getting a giggle out of it. Maybe not, and that's cool too. That's totally fine. But I'm enjoying it, and it's that self-enjoyment that you get so much of in Iron Lung in a way that I think is incredible. And again, the movie is not perfect, and I will mention some of those gripes because, for example, I think it suffered from a bit of the long night effect from Game of Thrones, where it got dark at some points, which was totally the point. And that's the thing, right? Is like, it's hard to call it a thing that is detracting from the movie because it is genuinely the point, right? Like, he's in a dark metal box at the bottom of an ocean of blood, and for us to feel that, it needs to be dark. It can't be super bright. But there's just moments where he's looking at something or he's doing something with his hands that you just cannot see what he's actually doing, to the point where it becomes a little bit of a detriment. But again, it's like, if it were that important, he wouldn't have hidden it. You know what I mean? Like, it serves to the fact of, you can tell he's doing something, but if it were so important that you really needed to know, it wouldn't have, it would have gotten the attention in the after effect, So I really think that was really the only gripe I had, other than the sound, which other people have already talked about as well too. I don't need to dive super deep into it, but there's points, right, where it's Mark talking to a loudspeaker, and that speaker is often very crackly and it's breaking up. And I remember the first thing that I thought when I walked out of that theater was, I kind of could have used subtitles. And I don't feel that way. I cannot stand having subtitles on. I feel like they distract me from what's going on screen. But I genuinely couldn't hear some points. And there were points where it's like voices talking over each other. And it's like, I couldn't hear it. So it's like, you're expecting the character to go, say that again, what did you just say? And you just don't get it, and he's just like reacting to it like he heard it loud and clear. And because the guy wrote the thing, he knows damn well what was said, so he can just kind of play off of it. But to me, as a viewer, it became a little bit difficult to tell what was being said, and especially towards some of the expository moments, I found that to be a little bit of a challenge, where it's like, I'm now leaving the theater thinking, I'm pretty sure I know what happened, but I'm glad I'm seeing it a second time. And that's, it's not a horrible thing, and I definitely would say I still got the main points of it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like I left being like, what the fuck just happened? But there were points where I was like, did I miss something? So it's like little things like that. But everything else, Mark's acting was insane. I really, I knew the dude could act to some degree, but he was acting. Like, this man genuinely put heart and soul into this, and you can see it. And yeah, there's points, again, you get like tonality of like, oh, that's Markiplier, obviously. But then you get this feeling of like, oh no, he is Simon. Now he is living in the shoes of the person he's portraying, and he did it in such an impressive way that played off of the other characters super well, and it felt so natural in that circumstance. It's like, if I'm sitting there thinking, how would I be acting in that circumstance? It's that. It's either that or give up and lay in the corner, which is, the whole point is that he wants to live, and you feel that he wants to live, and it was just so brilliant to me in that sense. And then another thing I should just address is that score. Man, Andrew Hulshult, is that how you say it? Andrew Hulshult did so good. For the fact that this was his first time scoring a film, you wouldn't know. You would not know. Watching that, and this thing, score-wise, you're not getting the grandiose horns of Star Wars. You're just getting ambience in a way that only music can give you, right? It's like, yes, you have phenomenal sound design with the sounds outside of the sub and the sounds in the sub and the attention to detail on everything that was done, but that music is just so unsettling and so deep and bass heavy, and it just builds and builds and builds in a way that it needs to for this kind of movie, and it did a phenomenal job. So genuinely hats off to Andrew. That is so good. I hope he scores more horror movies in the future. It's great. The costume design was super cool. Obviously, you don't see the costume of what the convict is wearing in the Iron Lung game, but this is what I would imagine. Given the circumstances of the plot, that's probably what I would imagine the prisoner would be wearing. And I think it looks sick, but it also serves the purpose. And I think for a costume in a movie, you can't ask for any more than that. It tells the story of what it's needing to tell, but it also looks sick as hell, and I could totally see people cosplaying that at conventions. I could see me cosplaying that at conventions. That would be so cool. But yeah, so, the other main thing about it, and it's a lot of the criticism that you're seeing for it, is that people are calling it boring. And I think the people who are calling it boring, I don't want to say they don't understand a slow burn, because I'm not trying to dig against anybody else and their personal preferences, but I think it is a matter of preference. And I think the way that Mark likes to enjoy content, whether it's games, whether it's clearly films, it's something that needs to be earned, and you can't have a really, really good payoff and a really interesting story without there being some slow points. I think of Game of Thrones as a great example. Season 1 can be rough to get through. I've rewatched it a couple times. I know people who haven't gotten through it because it's just not for them. I'm trying to show it to Nicole, and I can tell it's kind of slow. It's a slow burn, and that's not for everybody. But to me, I think that Iron Lung did such a phenomenal job. I think it built it in a way that needed to be built. You need to see the tedium of what he's doing. You need to see a guy scribbling on maps and pushing levers. People are like, oh, it's just Mark pushing levers for 2 hours. No, it's not. If you're looking at it like that, it feels like you're missing the point. And it's not to say like, oh, well, if I'm missing the point, that means the point wasn't being made well enough. No, I just don't think it's for everybody. And that's totally fine. And I think as someone who enjoyed Mark playing Iron Lung, just Mark's content in general, Iron Lung the way that that story is played in the game, I think the movie did a great job. I think it's a really, really good adaptation because it's not changing it to make it more interesting. The game is kind of a slow burn. You can't see anything. It's you and some levers. You go press a button on a camera and you see outside and you go, okay, that's in front of me. And then something happens. And it's when that something happens after the suspense is built that I think is a great thing. And there's some predictability to it where it's like nothing's going to happen, and now probably something's going to happen. Oh, yeah, it did. And you can look at it like that, but you can also just appreciate it for what's being done because it's not following a formula, but it's using that formula as kind of a reference point for how to get through the plot in a way that I really just think was very impressive. But yeah, so I mean, I gave the overall movie, I gave it an 8 out of 10. And I think that's fair. I mean, I wanted to go higher, but I had to temper the fact that I am such a big fan of Mark's that I didn't want that to weigh too heavily on my review because I just think it's great. And I think the whole experience of it is great. I think the fact he's doing the blood drive along with it is great. There's something to that I struggle to get over. And if we're talking subjectively unbiased, right? Subjectively, I think it was phenomenal for a lot of reasons. And I think a lot of those reasons are kind of outside the movie. And I had to temper that a little bit. Again, I can't look past the fact that there's some stuff I just straight up can't hear, right? I've got to dock a point for that. I can't look past the fact that I couldn't see some things. I got to dock a point, but it's like I didn't feel right to give it less than an 8 because, again, you see the passion in it. And it's not like, I think even someone who doesn't know anything about the IP can look at this and still see how passionate the filmmaker was and the entire cast and crew and everything that went into it, to the point where I can't give it lower than an 8. I really can't. That passion to me is worth more than production quality or little bits of writing or a first-time debut actor acting while also directing himself. I can't look past these things. So for that reason, I gave it an 8. And the thing to me is too, it was an experience, right? It is something that, for the fact that it will not be in theaters for very long, I think people need to see it in theaters because it's the feeling of the music all around you. It's that encapsulation that you feel, how you can somehow feel so claustrophobic on such a big screen is not an easy thing to accomplish. And they nailed it. It's so good. And the visual effects were really good. There weren't too many, and that's the thing. I appreciate how much practical effect there was between the set design, the costume design, effects that happen later in the movie. Things like that matter. And to be able to allot visual effects for specific purposes that practical effects just can't do, and to then be able to save the resources from the stuff that it didn't need to be in and you could do practically, and to then allocate those resources to the visual effects that need to be done, I think is great. And was it perfect? No. But the entire movie to me felt like someone who has been studying Corridor, right? And that's the thing. Mark, I think he interned with Corridor. I don't think it was like a full-time position or anything. I think he interned with Corridor. And to me, that is something so brilliant because it shows how he wants to understand how people watch movies on top of how people make movies. And I think that is one of the biggest takeaways from this, is that Mark knows how to make a movie because he knows how to watch a movie. I say the same thing about cooking. I'm not a phenomenal chef, but I know how to cook because I know how to eat. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the two go hand in hand. You can't have filmmaking without being a fan of film in the first place and knowing what you want to see so that you know what to put on the screen to serve up to everybody else. And I just think it was great. I think it was a great moment for indie filmmakers. The fact that this was self-distributed by the person who self-funded it, starred in it, wrote it, edited it. It's amazing. It's just an amazing accomplishment that Mark and everybody involved should be so exceptionally proud of, genuinely. So I absolutely urge anybody to watch this movie as soon as you can, whenever you can, as many times as you can, and just get more and more out of it every time, because it's one of those movies that I think benefits from a second watch, both because of the stuff you might miss on the first watch through, but also the stuff that you didn't miss, that you can appreciate a little bit more next time you're watching it. I just think it's great. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say about that. This video is later than I wanted it to be, although it's technically earlier than it could be. It's like 7 o'clock now. I actually might not be able to get this out when I thought I was going to get it out, so it might be a matter of tomorrow, Tuesday, February 3rd. This should be out by the latest Tuesday. And then we'll still have Friday's video on Friday, and we'll go forward from there. So thanks for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like. Please talk to me about the movie. If you saw Iron Lung, I want to hear your thoughts. If you made it through me yapping for like 20 minutes, please, by all means, yap back. I want to have that conversation because this is something I would love to talk more about. Perfect timing. The camera just overheated, so we're going to call it right there. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Goodbye.